everybody. My name is Luis Lacau, and this is going to be the inaugural episode of Madman with a Mic. This is basically just kind of off-the-cuff conversation about life in general and the shit that goes through my head. Now, this is going to be pretty explicit stuff, obviously, because I'm not going to censor myself. This is kind of free-form conversation, blog type of thing. So I'll be able to talk about anything and everything involved. So please know that anything that I have a conversation about on this show is just my personal view. It has nothing to do with my company, Man Bites Media, or any of the affiliated shows that I may be a part of. Obviously, that also goes with any other company that I work with. So now that the disclaimer's out there, let's just have a conversation. Obviously, if you want to have more personal conversation with myself, you could always reach out to me via Facebook, and I will more than likely respond pretty quickly back to you about anything that you might think is fascinating about this conversation. So, honestly, the last few days I've been listening to a few podcasts about conspiracy theories and all that kind of stuff, and it's very interesting because stumbled across this concept about the hive mind, or kind of our universal mind concept, and I think that's very fascinating because the way that science fiction has actually put it, that maybe we could reach our true potential by having our minds connected with all of humanity, and by doing this, maybe when we reincarnate, we're able to join this hive mind. I find that so intriguing because, first of all, everybody wants to seek enlightenment. At least my personal belief is that if we reach sufficient level of capacity, we're able to reach that enlightenment and able to surpass our physical form and potentially take on a completely different physical form, if even we need a physical form at that point. Maybe it's just pure energy. So I believe our energies leave our body, our quote-unquote souls leave our bodies, and they migrate from life to life, learning from each life that we have. Mind you, our life could also be that of an animal, insect, anything, human, extraterrestrial. It doesn't even need to be just on this planet, for that matter. So I think from each lifetime we learn something and are able to move forward in our journey as a soul, as an energy, and as a being, honestly. So by doing this and reincarnating to a different soul, we're able to learn from our past lives. And each time, maybe each life is like a test to accomplish one thing in particular. And it's very fascinating how humanity has progressed. And even us humans have changed our behavior, evolved, if you may call it that, as ourselves. Our minds have evolved and have been able to move past certain things. And I think little by little, our minds are progressing even further. People look at certain aspects of life, like people that are born with autism, or anywhere on the spectrum for that matter, or ADHD. It's a very recent revelation that this has occurred, and I wonder if maybe that's just another form of evolution. Now, again, this is my personal view. This is not any medical aspect or anything, but I find it very fascinating that so many people have been born with this, or born in this form, and they have this on their mind. And I think that, honestly, maybe this is our next form of evolution. One of the movies and shows that I really, really enjoy are the X-Men series because of that. Because it's that kind of mind-altering personality and social area that they bring up. Not only did they really invigorate the gay pride movement in the 90s, but they also changed a lot of things before that. even with a modern audience, I think that we're able to see that people are different. Everybody's different, and that's the fascinating part about humanity, is that we're all so different, yet we have so much in common. And that common side is the part that I want to focus in on, because maybe that common side is what really brings us together and what kind of unites us as a species. Now, if that's the case, then maybe this hive mind isn't that far off. Maybe that's where our next step in evolution is. Not only autism, quote unquote, as we call it now, as a disorder or a disease progression. Maybe that's not a disease. Maybe that's not it's not anything negative. How about if that's what our next step in evolution is? Why would I say that? Well, first of all, look at what we do here in the United States. Okay, in the United States, we concentrate on one career, one goal. We hyper focus on that one career, and we learn that in and out for the rest of our lives. And that's what we do. Now, what does an autistic person do? They extremely excel in one aspect, really. And then the other things they are able to manage, but they're not extraordinary at it like they are in this one focus that they are able to do. How about if that's just a next step in evolution? Because that's what we've been doing for the last 50 years as a society. So us as a society have made this evolutionary step happen, because we are to be hyper-focusing ourselves already, so might as well make that part of us, the moment that we're born, to do the same thing. How about if that's what that is, and not just a disease, quote-unquote, as people call it, which I do not agree. Some of the people that I know that are on the spectrum, they are the most amazing people in the world. I refuse to believe that I refuse to call it a disease, because a disease means a negative connotation, and it should not have a negative connotation. These people are amazing people, and they're able to live lives like anybody else. And for the most part, the people that I know that are on the spectrum, they are better than a lot of people that are not on the spectrum. They are more humble, they're more appreciative, they're more loving. And that's what we need as humanity, honestly. We need more love, we need more kindness towards each other, and that's severely lacking, I think, in our lives. And it's something that needs to change, because we need to love each other, guys. This hatred towards each other because of class, race, political affiliation, all that stuff, it's trivial, man. It's trivial. We all have the same thing inside. We all flow red blood inside. We all flow, and we all have blood inside of us. That makes us all human. That makes us all exactly the same inside. So why these exterior foundations should mean anything to us, when in reality, kindness, loyalty, and all that stuff doesn't come from an exterior. It comes from interior. And that's what we should focus in on. Because if you focus on the interior, we're all exactly the fucking same. There's no difference between you, me, another person that might have autism, that might have this, might have that. We're all the same, brother. We're all part of the same family, humanity. And there is no other race, there is no other class, there is no other thing other than humanity. And that's general. That's everybody on this planet is human. So, yeah, I think that we all are able to progress our minds. And evolution is one of those steps, I think. So, maybe we will have what we call a community mind or communal mind. And if we do that, can you imagine the possibilities of this? Can you imagine not only needing one mind, but having 10, 15 people that are able to connect together? Imagine if the first steps of that is our family, and our family being able to commune with each other, our minds. and communicate without having to talk, not having to even do anything. We're able to automatically talk and connect with somebody else. Now, if that's the case, like, humanity could take bounds forward by doing this, because it's not just one brain that's thinking about subjects and obstacles and trying to maneuver around things and learn and invent. It's hundreds of minds put together into one. And by doing this, it's like a computer having memory chips put into it. And yeah, one memory chip is great. It might run the computer, but if you put more memory chip in, then it's going to move faster. It's going to move quicker. It's going to be able to do a lot more. And that's what I think is going to happen if we do this. If we are able to get to this evolutionary step where we are a communal mind. Now, sci-fi tackles this with species like the Borg, or Stargate with the Ancient Ones, and Star Wars with the Jedi and the Sith. That's what they do, basically, is a communal mind. The Jedi are all one, and they find each other and able to combine thoughts and move thoughts together, and by doing so, they're able to evolve even further than humanity ever has. Same thing with the Borg. The Borg are able to sustain themselves through themselves. They don't have to have or rely on anybody. They're able to do that with the technology that they are a part of. So they themselves repair themselves, they build themselves, they build their world themselves. And I think that's fascinating too, because that kind of eliminates the obstacles, the barriers of having a world, a planet that is fragile like ours. And being able to lose that planet, then what happens to us? We scatter to the four corners of the galaxy, and what happens? Do we end up like Titan AE, where we're basically on the verge of extinction? And if it wasn't for the Titan, then we would all die and never have a planet again. We don't want that. We're a species of survival. We find a way to survive no matter what. So that's not an option. We have to find a way to be able to combine together and build ourselves. And it's the only way I see it as. And this doesn't mean that you lose your individuality. Quite the contrary. You have your individuality. That's what makes us great, is that having so many different points of view to have a conversation or invent something or progress or philosophize. You're eliminating any social barriers that might occur by creating a hive mind. Now, that doesn't mean that you lose your individuality by having that. You still have that. You still have that independence to be able to do that. But your independence is also magnified because you're able to think outside of the box from different points of view, which is so amazing, because then you could really invent things by doing that. You could see the different sides and the different views. Say, when I was married a few years back, the points of view that my ex-wife saw were completely different than mine, and it was so fascinating seeing her tell me her side, because I was always intrigued by that. And everybody looks at things differently. Everybody sees things differently. So every time we look at an obstacle, we see a certain way to tackle the obstacle. But imagine having 10 or thousands of other minds that have completely different ways of handling the obstacle. Then we're able to conclude what is the best way that has the least repercussions. And by having so many minds, we can make that decision with a snap. And then make sure that we don't screw up, thus killing people, thus, devolving back to where we need to be, which we don't want that. So I think that's pretty interesting stuff, and this podcast made me think so much about all these things about humanity, where we could go, where we could be for that matter, if we only allowed ourselves to grow as humans and excel in every aspect. So by opening our minds, I think, to possibilities, that gives us the opening to so many different doors that could push us past our boundaries that have been artificially put on us by both society, by religion, by just our own social norms. For example, I can't speak out about certain things because if I do, then I'm breaking down the social norms of society, and I considered an outcast by doing so. Before this whole revolution that happened about 15 years ago, anybody that associated themselves with geek culture, quote unquote, was an outcast. Now it's become a social norm, but 10, 15 years ago it wasn't. Those were the people that were hung up by their underwear. They were teased, they were picked on, they were basically downgraded to the lowest form of society. Yet they did so much for our society. And I think by embracing that, that evolutionary step is going to happen. And we have reached that point where we are in the age of Aquarius. So Age of Aquarius is kind of a point of enlightenment, and if you believe in that, in the astrological signs and the astrological timeline, which is very interesting stuff. If you really sit down and read it, it is pretty freaking fascinating, I'll tell you that. And Age of Aquarius is interesting because this is the point where we can reach enlightenment, where we can reach that new level of humanity, and we could surpass every thought that we ever had before and push ourselves to that next bound. And all these sci-fi shows and movies are so interesting because they give us goals. They give us personal ideas on how to evolve ourselves as humans. And I think that's important. We need to be able to see not only the bad but the good in our society, because we all have and we all suffer from ambitious lives. And if we don't suffer from ambition, then we want to be the best that we can. And unless we know the bad and our flaws, we will never evolve and never see the good side in our future. So I think it's very important to understand what your flaws are and where you're flawed at, because by doing that, you know where you need to fix, where you need to move around and actually modify your behavior possibly to be able to reach the goals that you have in front of you. And that's a very important way of handling any problem, honestly, is where are you weakest? Try to find out how you can improve on that weakness, and by doing so, you're able to jump leaps and bounds ahead of where you thought you might have been. At least that's my philosophy. So yeah, it's a little bit of philosophy today that I wanted to jump into because honestly, I love it. I love talking this stuff. I could talk about this for hours if I had another person next to me talking with me. And hopefully with these conversations, I'll be able to get Nisha on board as well, and we'll do Madman and your Geek Mom together, which will be pretty fun and funny, I think, because a lot of these topics we could really bounce off of each other pretty well. But yeah, this is going to be the one of many conversations, I think. That'll be my personal blog. It won't have an exact date to post up. It's honestly whenever I feel like having an insightful conversation with myself and with you guys, the listeners, that are able to tune into this. So I really appreciate you guys for jumping on and listening to this conversation, and hopefully you'll be able to subscribe to the channel and listen to more conversations that I have with myself in my car or in my room, and just thinking deep thoughts, and I want to spill that out to everybody and possibly start a conversation with everybody. So please go on to either Man Bites Film or Man Bites Media on Facebook and have the conversation. I might be posting some enlightenment and some random little tidbits and things like that I wanted to talk about. But I'll also be posting it on my own personal site. So you can always add me. Again, my name is Luis Lacau, Lacau, just like you see in the description below. But yeah, just hold a conversation with me. If you find something fascinating and you want more, maybe I could bring it up in the next episode. And we could have an even further conversation with what you brought up. If you want to join me, we could actually join on a phone conversation and have this discussion over the phone. So until then, I will see you next time whenever I feel like recording one of these again, which will be soon, I promise you. And have a great day.